If you enjoy watching ranchers on YouTube or other forms of social media, you may ask, how do ranchers take care of calves in winter storms? What are some tricks to saving frozen babies? Why are calves born in the wintertime anyway? Well, today we have all the answers to those questions and more.
Try.
Got home today to feed. Been quite a day. Found a mama in the pasture with twins. This is one of them. She's had a bath. She's had a blow dry.
her bath was to get her warm.
And now she's in front of the
no
fire.
Salon.
No salon. Hoping for the best on this little girl. She's got fireside digs, and she did get a little milk in her, some colostrum that we had. So this is what happens in snowstorms.
Come on, baby. Yes. Fight for me. Can you fight for me, huh?
Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen. My faithful co-host and partner in crime is my father, Braden. We are yet again graced with the presence of my mother, Elsa. If you enjoy the following discussion or the things we provide on this channel, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. If you have more questions or something to add, don't be afraid to give some comments too. The video you just saw was an example of today's subject, calving in Montana and doing it during the winter. That video was part of a desperate move for mom and dad to save a frozen calf. Unfortunately, the reality is, as dad has said before, and many a rancher have said as well, you can't save them all. At times it is completely out of your control. Other times it's within your control, but you are moments too late. Sometimes you have the ability and the knowledge to save one, and it still ends in tragedy. You simply cannot save them all. This is the harsh reality of ranching. No matter how much you try, nature knocks you down anyway. The worst are often the ones that frustrate you because the calf simply gave in and did not want to try to live. Like humans willing themselves to die, the calf may decide it doesn't want to try and give life a try whatsoever. What's that saying? If it's not one thing, it's another. Then you gain some momentum, some success. You may even start to feel accomplishment and elation from the small wins. Recently, mom and dad had that very feeling when they were able to successfully help one calf. The only problem? Success and wins are rewarded with double, or in this case, triple the workload. They saved one calf to be punished with two nearly frozen to death calves only a few days later. Both those little ones received similar treatment as the first. They were brought into the house, out of the weather, and sat in front of the fireplace to get warmed up. Once done, mom and dad worked together to couple the calves with their respective mothers. One was easier than the other, which resulted in one receiving a tube feeding for a time being. The final success video will be added at the end of today's discussion. Despite the end result of a steer or a heifer's life where we eventually slaughter and butcher for consumption, we truly care about the well-being of our livestock. Some may think otherwise, but it's the truth. We want them to live and thrive more than anything else. We want them to have a good life and to enjoy existing in our small corner of the world. We always strive for zero suffering and a rapid, painless death at the end of a long beef production line. While we do not consider the cattle pets, we provide as much love and care as we can into each animal. So much so that we have to know when to engage triage mode. You can often focus too much on one of the lost causes, and as a direct result, you lose the battles for the ones you have the capacity to save. Calving season as a rancher forces you into many roles. First, you're a simple businessman or woman, then an owner looking out for the best interest of the animal before you. Next, you may become an obstetrician, where you may morph into a general veterinarian, finally turning into a realist the next minute. All the year leads to this stressful, often sleepless 2 months of the year where calves may come in batches of 2 or 3, or even a half dozen at a time, or not at all. The guessing game never stops, and checks are needed every couple hours. You hope to be there when cows and calves need you the most, but sometimes you simply aren't. It's impossible to be out in the pasture monitoring the herd 24 hours a day for 60 days, so you do your best. Often things go well, and there's a little that you need to do, partly because you are prepared properly. Using EPDs, culling the least wanted or beneficial cows, monitoring weather, resupplying the medical equipment, checking regularly, and readying yourself for emergencies. All the preparation sets up a resounding success. The problem is that amongst the successes are crushing blows from failure. You missed a calf by mere minutes and it suffocated because the new mother did not clear off its face. A calf was born in a dreadful storm and froze to the ground, dying of hypothermia. Some simply come into the world backwards, and others just never take a breath of life for some unknown reason. All the wins are often eclipsed by the minority of losses. We as humans are naturally created to remember the bad as a way to evolve and learn from the lessons earned through the tough times and difficulties earned. You can calve 99 calves with no problem, but you'll never forget the one that you could not have saved and failed to do so. These are the struggles ranchers face each year. If you reside in a northern climate like we do in Montana, it can be exponentially more difficult than places like the southern states simply due to cold weather. So, how do you minimize the losses? How do you keep going? How do you keep doing it? What are some tricks of the trade? What do you do when you lose a calf? What do you do if you lose a cow? What are the stories of this year? And today, happily, we share that mom and dad saved all 3 of those little babies from the brink of hypothermia in the recent days. The problem? We still lost them already, and it remains early in the calving season. So, with that, I will hand it over to mom and dad.
Boy, this sounds like something we don't want to do. It sounds like a lot
Yeah.
go get a town job.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything you said is true. I mean, it's and even right now, it's mid-morning here.
I made your dad go out right away and check babies because I thought they were cold and snowy because it snowed early this morning and it's still snowing.
Had about an inch of snow at 2 this morning when I did a check, and of course those are those checks when you go out and you think a cow's, she's close, or heifers in this case, and you're watching close, and you've disrupted your sleep because I barely heard the alarm. I mean, I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
I did drag myself out of bed. And there's something about going out there and not having a calf. It's like, are you kidding me? I could have slept.
Yeah.
But you can't just sleep, because sure that you do, you're going to go out there and there's going to be a heifer that's in trouble. She's been trying to calve for hours and hasn't, and then you lose the calf and maybe her. So,
Right.
you're just exhausted. Your mom gets up at, I guess, a little after about 5:30 this morning, and she let me sleep, and odd things happen. I was kind of dozing and I was dreaming, but I was dreaming that I was getting a calf to nurse, and you can hear that sucking sound. And then as the calf is sucking in my dream, then I realized the sound isn't the calf sucking, it's the dog walking into toenails hitting the hardwood floor. I mean, it's just your body, your mind is consumed with the theme of calving. And you don't even realize it. It is. Everything you do, you think about, revolves around keeping these little guys alive.
Yeah. Well, I've got 7 videos that might get sprinkled in and out of today's discussion, but the first one's the one that I alluded to, and it's the one where you're rubbing that calf in front of the fire, and people might be wondering, well, what exactly are you doing just rubbing a calf, and kind of almost it looks like you're just doing a heavy petting on it.
Well, the really what happened is, and we didn't get it in film because
we were busy.
That calf had never gotten up. It was laying on its side, and it was slowly paddling its feet as if it were, swimming almost.
Yeah.
But laying on its side. It had never gotten up, and it was a twin. And the cow had decided she wasn't even going to do nothing with it, and was cleaning the other one off. Which, from the cow's perspective of survival of the fittest, she chose the bigger, healthier, stronger one of the two. We just happened to come by, luckily, at the right time. And so we picked it up. So this calf has had not been on its feet. It's had no colostrum. It's still wet from, having amniotic fluid around it.
Yeah.
So,
and it was cooling off. It was getting dark.
Yeah, it was getting, that's right. It was right at dark, or close to dark. So we picked it up, took it in the house, and your mom ran tepid bath water. I mean, we didn't even take it to a hot box. We got to get this thing warmed up now, and put it in water, and she kept its head up, and then just kept playing this water over it to warm it up, and then draining the water, filling it up again, and kept that up until his calf started to move a little bit more, started to get some life back into it. And then at that point,
of course, the dogs had to investigate what was going on.
Right. Yeah, they're always big help when you don't want them to be.
Yeah, I think the final video that I put together, it showed, I left one part with Cubby licking its face, trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get it up out of the tub, and then we put it on some blankets in front of the fire, And that's when your mom is rubbing it down and, drying it off is only part of it, but stimulating that skin, getting it to move like a cow would, when they lick them and clean them up, is also doing the same thing. It's stimulating those nerves and stimulating that blood flow in that skin, getting them to respond and try to fight. And that calf was near death, and honestly was one of the ones that I was surprised that she came back. One of the worst I'd seen, and I told your mom at that time, and of course you know how she is. I want to prepare her that she can't save them all, and then when she can't, then she's devastated. And it's like, the last thing I want to do is see your mother cry. Not that I haven't made her do it a lot over 30 years, but so there's the reality. This could happen. I don't know if it's going to make it or not. It's looking better, but you know what? It's not responding like it should. And his head was thrown back, that is very close to death.
Right.
When you see a lot of skeletons, you see birds, you see animals near death, you'll find them where their head is stretched back and laid back. That's
kind of how
death.
she was. Yeah.
And she was very close to that. Yeah.
So that kind of alludes to what I was talking about in the intro too, is you go into triage mode. When do you determine when to call her quits and just move on to the next one? If you had, let's say you had 2 other cases at the same time, you had all 3 of them, and you just couldn't focus on one at one given time. Like what would be like the conditions that would force you to say, I have to just leave this and move on?
Well, honestly, and we talked about that. I think I've said that to somebody else. And they're asking how calving was going. And if we had all 3 of them in there at the very same time, you just split your time between them. I mean, you literally have them right there, and you're trying, if one is starting to come out and being okay, and the other one's starting to slip, you take your attention towards them. There does come a time when you have to say, okay, this one is not going to make it.
Not improving.
Yeah. And so you still try everything you can, but you can be rubbing them, you can do everything you can, and they just quit. They just die. They stop. And at that point, when that happens, you let them go. If this had been a year ago, when your mom was living at the other place and I was here calving alone, you do the best you can. You do exactly what that cow does, and that is, who do I think I'm going to be able to save?
Yeah.
And you take your time, because there's no way that I could have by myself taken care of 3 calves in that manner. It wouldn't have happened.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is I was thinking 2 different scenarios. You don't have multiple calves that are frozen, but instead you have like a cow with a breech calf, and then you have a frozen calf separate. One's going to require you to be in the house, and one's going to require you to be outside. Which one are you going to choose?
Well, the other one is, are you going to save a calf, or are you going to save a cow and a calf?
Right.
Or you might lose 2 calves, but are you going to save the cow? At that point, it becomes economics, business economics. What is the most important and least expensive loss? Right? It's those calves. That cow can reproduce next year if she has to, if you can save her. So, it's hard. It's not, because you want to save. It's very difficult to watch a very young animal beginning life, and you let it die. That's hard. It's very hard emotionally, even on me. And I would say I'm fairly crusty. Yeah. So, you do what you can. It becomes, you can't let emotion rule completely. It does. And that's what drives you. The emotional save of these animals, it's not just monetary. There's emotional charge there. And that is really what drives you to keep going. I think we spent on that first calf, was it 5 or 6 hours it took us to get her where thought she was going to live.
Yeah, I think so.
So it was a long
she
time.
Was in the tub most of an hour.
Yeah, and it wasn't like we stopped to grab a bite to eat or even grab a drink. We stayed at it to try to keep this thing alive.
What about,
and now she's a precocious little thing. So
yeah, that's the one that was following you around, right?
Yes. Yeah.
She's the one. Yeah, she's Fireside is what we started calling her, because I think you mentioned something about her having a fireside chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's fireside 137, and every time we feed, she has to come over and say hi to Dad, and she sniffs him and licks his leg. And
Well,
Well-
and it's just, they're desensitized, and you are the first thing that they really are there with, because you spend so many hours with them. And I've spent a significant amount of time getting that first heifer that lost her calf because she was too stupid to get up and lick
yeah,
it.
she didn't understand.
Heifers are dumb. That's just, they haven't been through this before, and the instinct on some of them is very strong, and others not quite as strong. She's taken this calf really well, but it took about
took a
5 days, 6
yeah,
days for
yeah.
that to really
And
get
that heifer was
Yeah.
137, right?
number
Yeah.
137, right?
Okay, so this calf then, and we'll put the video in here. The
More interested in hay than that baby, aren't you? Let's see if we can change your mind.
this calf is not the cow 137. It's not her biological calf. It was a
Right.
twin. It was the weaker twin that you saved.
Yes.
And you were, over time, it took a while, but over time you got her to finally claim that calf, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what was the process? What were some of the strategies you were doing? Like how long did it take? And what were you doing
Well,
to try and make
and
sure
this
that
is
this
the-
thing happened?
Yeah.
Well, and this is the tough part, because when that heifer lost her calf, at that point, I was hoping for a set of twins,
Right.
because then I can graft that soon, very quickly onto this heifer.
This was
Which might
5
take it.
days later.
5 days after she calved, finally we got the set of twins, and I'm like, it's
Which,
tough.
how-
I mean,
How long does it take before a cow starts to go dry?
week or so. I mean,
so
we
you're
have,
closing in on that window
Yeah.
real quick then.
well, but the amazing part is I remember Dad and Mom one time had this similar thing, essentially the same thing happened with a cow that had calved and lost her calf. I think it was just born dead or a bad, a tough pull. And 10 days later, 10 full days, they were able to graft that twin onto that cow, or the cow died. Anyway, they had a calf that needed a cow. 10 days after she had calved, she went ahead and took that calf and raised it. That's about as long as I've seen happen, because pretty soon you're going to start looking at the possibility of mastitis, that going dry, certainly colostrum and milk that's not good, or probably biologically, I'm sure it doesn't taste, well, colostrum doesn't taste good anyway, but it's needed.
Yeah.
So 5 days I knew we had a window in there, but you don't know. That cow may have been an extraordinary cow to go 10 days and still have milk for a calf and take the calf. That's the thing. Pretty soon they start to forget about it. That's how the balling stops at weaning time. Pretty soon those cows start forgetting about the calves, and the calves start forgetting about the moms. That's the way it is. And then they dry up. So the issue with this cow, or this heifer taking this calf, there were some milk issues. There was a little worried. Well, this is
She
tough.
got milk replacement.
Right.
Yeah.
We gave her some colostrum,
Mhm.
powdered colostrum, which is never, I don't care how good the formulations are, they're never as good as a cow.
Not the real thing.
And you got
Right.
butter fat, in that milk that you cannot be replaced. So then it's a matter of, is this heifer she didn't even really care about her own calf. Is she going to take this calf? And we tried everything. I mean, I got the crap kicked out of me by her too, trying to get this calf to nurse. And the calf would take a bottle. That wasn't an issue.
No.
Once we got her to eat,
Once she figured that out, she was all about.
yeah, she's
Which
all
we
about
had we had a bottle calf. What?
Couple
2
years
years ago?
Yeah.
She was cute, but like they also don't grow as big either. It's
Well,
it's not
they
as
don't get the,
nutritionally sound.
right. I mean, it's just a pain. That's where having a milk cow is not a bad thing, because you can put that calf on a milk cow, or be able to do much better. It's like you eating once a day,
Right.
or these calves eat twice a day instead of every few hours. And I mean, it does something to them, to their growth. It's not positive. So, I even took, after that time, she wouldn't take that calf, and I skinned her dead calf. I had that calf laying here, and you never know. I mean, if I have a set of twins, I might need the hide of that calf. But I left it on the calf, on this
Yeah.
dead calf. So then I went ahead and skinned it. Had to bring it in. It was froze, so no big deal. It's going to stay better that way. Actually, I brought it into the shop, warmed it up, skinned it, and then tied that hide to it. You and I
She
did.
was quite fashionable. Yeah.
Yeah, and that cow or that heifer still didn't want, even with that.
She wasn't too interested. No.
Again, you got a heifer that doesn't necessarily know what to do, or has not got as strong a maternal instinct. She does now. She's fine with that calf, but once
so Fireside had her cape on for a week.
About a week. It was the underside was starting, and and I went, okay, we don't want the bad smells to overwhelm.
Yeah.
So, and she was starting to accept this calf a little bit more, but we were having to put her in the head catch, where where we pull a calf, put her in the head catch,
putting the cow in the head
or
catch.
put the cow in there, yeah, and then I was getting the calf up there where she could nurse because the cow was kicking her, and finally we just kept feeding this calf about every 4 hours. I'd go out and put the cow in the head catch.
Baby was willing.
Yeah, it was funny. You come out and the cow finally, or this heifer finally got to where, like, okay, I get some, because Lisa was
giving
feeding
her
some
grain
when she had her head in the head catch. So she'd walk towards the head catch like a milk cow would, sticks her head through it, closes it, and all of the while you're doing this, here comes the calf, and it's bouncing around,
it's bouncing behind,
and sometimes would beat the cow to the head catch. And wait for us to come in. So calf was willing, and when you got a willing calf, that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah,
it really is. And if that calf is tenacious about nursing, then it's just a matter of getting the cow to take her, and she finally did it. And it just took time, where she finally just accepted that, okay, this calf's, this is what I got to do.
And we kept them in a smaller corral, so the proximity.
They're easily accessible.
Yep.
Yeah.
That cow's got feed and water, and then you would bring her in, and it became kind of a routine after about 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And then we just kept them up for a while.
Clearly the calf knew, like, she was open to getting milk because she was taking the bottle, stuff like that.
Right.
What was harder, getting the cow to accept the calf nursing her, or trying to get the calf to figure out to nurse off of the cow?
Oh,
no, the cow.
That was no issue. Those calves when they're born, they will try to nurse on anything that's close to them.
Yeah.
They'll try to nurse. If you got several of them in a corral that you're calving, and you've had one calve and the others are still waiting to calve, and those cows are near them, the calf will get confused and they'll just go to whatever's a big red thing over there, and they'll try to nurse. They don't care. They just want a belly full, and they don't know any different. It's the cow that takes care of that calf and identifies them by smelling them.
That'll have exception to,
yeah,
hey, you're not mine.
Right.
Well, I asked that because the video that you show of trying to get the little one to nurse, like, you were having to squirt her in the face and get her to figure out, like, hey, come over here. Like, how long did that take? Like, how difficult was it to get her to figure out that she could go to the live spigot rather than the plastic one?
She was a little different situation.
That
was 114. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the one that's
frozen.
That's Elsa. My new high bar for near death. And I've never had one lose its nose and ears. The nose, especially with frostbite. Yeah, the ears, but not that much on the nose.
Yeah,
that
her
was
nose
a significant amount.
Was black.
So, yeah, that was a difficult one because she really didn't want to nurse. There was, it's like her brain was froze.
And you and I, Calen, were talking about this, and you'd looked up a little bit of what the Nazis had done with the medical.
Yeah, so shocking enough here, folks, before anybody starts reporting things.
Right.
Despite the atrocities, make that very clear, the atrocities the Nazis did, some of the coolest things that did come out of that was a massive leap forward in medical information pertaining specifically to hypothermia. And so immediately I looked up, because I've known this since I was in 8th grade when I took some Nazi classes with a really good history teacher. I jumped online and I was like, what are some of the lessons learned from the Nazis and the experiments that they did on people? And we were, like, you and I were talking, it was the fact of trying to not only warm the insides, but, like, you thought maybe her palate had been frozen and got frostbite potentially on her palate, so warming up her mouth a little bit might help with that. And that might have been part of the reason it was keeping her from wanting to milk, but that's more or less because of the loss of sensory ability than really anything, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I think your idea, though, Mom, of taking a small washcloth or something and putting warm water on it and sticking it in their mouth might be a lesson to try next time. You never know.
Yeah. Because she was so frozen. Well, Dad, we knew we had those 2 calves from the day before when the weather was nice, and we'd gone out and checked them, and they were up and nursing, and there was no way we could have gotten them into the corral because we discussed it, and it was too deep of snow in the bottom of the coulee to try and grab the calves and draw the girls in,
and just frankly too far,
and too far, yeah. And so Dad said, well, we've got bedding out for them in the field, and we fed out there. They'll bring the babies in. And so in the morning we went out to check, and everybody's feeding, and he said, well, let's see if we can find those babies. And we went a little bit north of where they were feeding, and there was this lump, and Dad said, is that a baby? And I said, I don't think so. I think it's poop and hay. And then he said, I think it might be. And I looked again. I said, yep, there's a nose. And so she looked like just a pile of hay and poop in the hayfield.
Yeah.
well, because she's covered with snow.
Because she's covered with
Right.
snow. And he came around the
And she was
pickup.
sitting up. Her head was
Her
up.
her head was
Oh,
up a
that's
little
surprising.
bit. Her nose was what you noticed. And he said, is it alive? And I said, well, it's a little bit warm. I mean, she wasn't stiff, but she was getting there. And so I jumped in the pickup, and he put her on my lap, and we took her into the house.
She did blink when I moved her.
She did. Okay, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. And so we took her into the house in front of the fire.
Slow blink.
Slow,
Very slow.
very slow. And he said, I'm going to go try and find that other one. And he got to the field or the pasture where we last saw him, right? And got out to get her. And he had to hike over to her a little bit.
Well, I had to wait because we had a ground blizzard and the snow was blowing.
It was really nasty.
You couldn't see. And so I knew where they had calves.
And it was early enough that the light wasn't awesome. It was just getting light.
But gathering light in binoculars, you can go out a little earlier. So I was doing that, and I'm glassing through the pasture, and I'm looking about where she would have been, and I saw something that kind of the same thing. It's like, well, that looks a little bit bigger. It's not a rock. It's not a bush. And then the snow, I'm just kind of fixated on it once I saw that. And then the wind kind of quit a little bit, you know how it'll blow, or didn't blow some snow. And I went, that looks like a calf. So I had grabbed the calf sled and took it with me. And I went out there, you know, hiked out to it. And it was across the coulee, because there's no way you're getting through that coulee with that snow in the pickup. And I don't know, the tractor you might have bought, but you're kind of stuck with it. Got to her, and as I got to her, you know, you're just kind of hollering to see if they're even up, and she moved her head. So I knew she was alive. Got her in the sled, drug her back to the pickup, threw her in the back, and got her in the house. And then we just started working on the two.
And she was in way better shape than than Elsa, Frozen 3. And Elsa's ears were totally solid. And I think,
which we posted a thing on, I think it's Instagram and Facebook a couple of days ago, where her ears are starting to droop because of that.
Yeah.
And she's got the black nose, like you said, because it's got frozen.
And her nose, you know,
It's
starting to peel now, but she just was so unresponsive, and we're rubbing her and Spunky there that Dad brought home, and trying to get them dry, and Cubby's cleaning their faces for me, and trying to be their mama for them. And I don't know, did Elsa start to get up and move a little bit first, or was it Spunky? I think it was Spunky.
Little number 86.
And she just was, well, like Dad said, she's comatose. And it was just that she was so darn cold that
very catatonic.
Yeah.
And when these calves are cold anyway, it's like a human. You want to get the core, you know, warmed up, right?
Yeah.
But the only way you're going to do that is to either get something down their throat, get them to nurse is the best way, because then they're nursing on their own. But these calves are so cold, when you stick your finger in their mouth,
it was ice
they're cold.
Yeah.
And so you're so close.
Which leads back to what we talked about originally, was putting maybe a little bit of warm something in their mouth to help warm them up too.
Well, and you can tube them, but you can't necessarily get that right too, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
so and that was the case
Well, and
where
and
I
and they're
had to
dead
wait.
weight. I mean, trying to do anything with them, you
Right.
know, they can't move, they don't do anything, and it's tough enough to do that when they have some amount of ability to stand
Flexibility of
and
their neck and head
flexibility.
too.
Yeah, but these two weren't, and so I don't know. They were in the house for the morning.
Yeah.
I think until about
4 or 5 hours.
noon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
They were hanging out in front of the fire, having a good time,
When
and
they start to want to get up,
yeah,
Yeah.
then and you know you're
things are
going
looking
somewhere.
good.
Which I think that video had the one was standing up, right? And you touched your belly and it's pretty cold. But then the other one you were feeding, and it was still laying down.
Come down and go like a zipper.
We got
Come on.
a bad wind last night and this morning, wind chill 5 below. These guys were in their own individual snowbanks, essentially.
Snow was covering them.
The little one that's standing got a little milk in her belly, and now she's decided, hey, I like you. You came and got me when I was cold.
You know, I got nothing to offer you there, pumpkin. And that nose is cold.
I bet.
There we go. There we go. You keep.
Okay, I'll get the other bottle out. Hang on, kid.
Yeah, give her that.
Yeah, that was the one. Mom calls her Elsa.
Yeah.
Elsa's
from-
114,
From
and
the Frozen
yeah,
show.
and Spunky is 86.
86. Okay.
See, this is, and you know, you can't help but you don't name these animals, but it just seems like
I just
it
gotta
happens.
fit the circumstance, you know. She was frozen to the third.
You
So
know, and
if they only stood there for like 4, or you said like 5-6 hours maybe, how did you reintroduce them to
4 or
moms?
5. Oh, so then that was fun because it was awful weather-wise, and we got to get these 2 cows in. Well, the cows were on the feed ground with everybody else, and you know where they're going to go. Actually, 114, we think she gave up on the baby. We think she found her and decided there's no
She was
hope,
frozen.
and
Yeah, she's done.
she went back to eat. And so we gathered them all in to the corral, and then we divided those 2 off. We pulled a couple others in that we thought were going to calve soon because the weather was going to be crappy again some more. And 114 was not really excited about coming in, and she, like I said, she'd kind of like written off the calf. 86 was not as bad.
Well, it took a little bit harder effort to get 114 to take that calf because it's like she didn't recognize her.
Yeah.
She knew, this couldn't be my calf. I left her.
I don't know who
you know what I mean? It was not that that's really the thought process, but she was just not that interested.
That was the behavior.
And I think part of that is because we put a lot of scent on those animals.
Yeah.
Rubbing them down, drying them off. That is not their normal scent, and it takes a little while for that to come through.
Well, and I was going to ask too, like how much does that, like Cubby, you said was playing with or trying to like lick their face. How much do you think that has to do with the scent and trying to?
Honestly, I think his impact was less than ours because he was focusing on the ears and the face. You know how he is.
Oh, yeah.
And I was fine with that because it's some stimulation and it would be mother-like. And so I was worried about the rest of them. And we took 86 out and brought her mama in, and she recognized her pretty quickly. Yeah. But and then she went to nurse pretty. Yeah,
there wasn't really much of an issue there.
I mean, it was a little slow because 86 was still kind of unthawed.
I had to get her in a head catch.
Yeah.
But the point of that is being able to get these calves to nurse.
Yeah.
And, you know, helping them out that first little bit. The cow, you know, had nursed them before.
Yeah, they'd both nursed earlier.
So that's why I wasn't quite so concerned. That's why we didn't get them in the tub, because they had already had colostrum in them. They had some milk in them. They'd been dried off or licked clean
before that storm hit that morning.
And
so they just got wet again is the problem, and then it froze. Okay.
And 86's mom took to her really well because she was just a gnarly little biatch going. She'd be like, "What are you doing with my calf?" Which is great. We know she's protected and mom's going to watch after her. But how long did we leave them in the small corral there? A week?
Yeah, at least.
Almost a week.
It took really a couple of days because that cow just kicked the living crap out of me too, trying to get her to take the calf, because you're holding the calf up there in place,
Well,
getting this calf to figure out what she's got to do.
Yeah, but she took to the calf better.
Yeah, she did.
And I don't know, she was in the small corral 4 to 5 days at least.
Could be.
Because we wanted to make sure that they're nursing okay and that mom's going to take care of them. And like I said, 86 is pretty possessive. 114, a lot longer battle with that one because she didn't want the calf. It's like, that's not mine. She kicked dad a lot. I think we need to like develop a full body suit for when you go to introduce calves to moms and
Like
go in with the suit.
like the one you wear safely on the other side of the corral
Yeah,
panel.
yeah.
Well, that leads me to another one though, is the part that I think you got to desperation mode with 114, and that was the tube feeding. And we'll put the video in real quick.
Okay, this is the other one we had in the
Hi, baby.
house at the same time around the fire.
How you doing?
And I'm gonna kind of lube that up with some milk. So come here. And we are not sure, we're just getting enough in her, so I'm gonna tube her, make sure she's got plenty of food. I'm feeling for that.
Did you
Going down her esophagus.
did you need to wet it down more?
There it is. Yep. I
Oh
did.
my god. Okay.
Get it in.
She doesn't like it.
Undo the clamp.
And we understand,
She is not a happy camper.
but she's not. I don't think she's feeding on her own.
Ah, come here.
Ordinarily, I would help, but I have the camera today.
There you go.
Or maybe I don't help.
It's
gonna-
draining in there.
Unzip a little.
Probably it's going, but give it a little vent. Not too fast, but fast enough. There we go. And you can see her nose is black. It's frostbit. She's gonna lose the tips of her ears.
Hi,
Her
turd.
little buddy right here was with her at the house fireplace.
No, you can't have that.
And this girl has just not thrived. She was a lot further down, and I didn't know if we were gonna keep her alive even then, but she's been okay. But she's got no nursing action. She doesn't suck on a nipple. She'll chew, but that doesn't do any good. And I have to force it into her, so in order to keep her plenty hydrated, we are tubing her once a day, and then I'm putting about 1.5 quarts in her as best I can.
Oh, the tail's wagging, Dad.
Is it? Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. Warm in the mouth. Now she's chewing a little bit. But I'm trying to around the bottle so I can wean her off that. I don't like tubing if I don't have to.
Don't know how else to hydrate.
No. There we go. There we go. We pull it out gently. There we go. And she said, yuck. Ugh. Don't like that.
Well, oh, sorry. You need to
Here.
eat on your own, baby.
But you see,
You had Dad, grabbing the calf, having to force a tube down its throat. You don't want to do it, but like there's a necessity to it. Like, can you just like, I know you shared this with the Dunroven Ranch, I think it was a week or two ago, but can you kind of share with us so that we can explain that now that the video's been shown and people can kind of see what we mean by that?
Well, I mean, you've got basically it's just a feeding bag, right? And a tube, and then you've got a hard wand with a kind of a rounded rubber end so you don't cut them, hurt them, make any abrasions.
Well, and really the tube is flexible, but there's a little covering on the end of it so that it won't bend on you.
Yeah, so you can actually
Right.
push it down gently. And you just, you grab the esophagus is kind of off to the side a little bit. The trachea is more in the center. And when you put a tube down a calf's throat, if you put your hand there where it's coming in, you can feel it move past. You can feel kind of the end of that bulb move down the throat. And if you can feel that, you're in the esophagus.
And that's actually something that the vet that we went to, Stella, the magic
Yeah,
cow,
she brought that up.
she brought that up, and Dad afterwards said, you know what, that makes me feel much more confident
Yeah.
that I'm doing it right, because she said, if you feel it, you are in. And
So-
that's a good thing.
It is, because I've tubed calves in the past, and you're always just so worried that you're getting down the esophagus and not the trachea and filling their
Yeah.
lungs with a bunch of fluid. Because when that happens, guess what? Now you just killed that calf. You're done.
Yeah. Yep.
Forget it. It's over with. And so that really helped a lot. But you measure, and we didn't show the measuring because it already done that, how far it is to the stomach and how far you're going to go down their throat. And this is a big calf, actually. So, I kind of went in and you feel that every time. And there was a couple times I couldn't feel it, so I'd pull it back out and try it again.
And she's fighting
And
it.
she's moving.
Of course,
she doesn't want this thing down her throat.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want it either.
Yeah. But and then you do it, and then you try not to put that milk in too fast. You got to let it flow and get it in there. But
and we were feeding anywhere from half a liter to a liter at a time. Just because of her size, you don't want to do too much, but yet we had to get milk in her for strength too.
And this was replace her early.
Yeah.
And then as we got her some strength and thought, okay, she's going to live. Let's try to get her on this cow. And the cow wasn't taking it. That cow really beat me up. I mean, he really beat me up. And I was trying to put this calf next to the cow because I'm trying to milk the cow out enough that I can fill, like a quart of milk from her, put it in the bag, milk her into a bottle, and then throw that into the bag, and then from the bag, tube it into the calf. And so that was happening. And then I'm using the calf, basically. She knew the calf was there. By that time, she kind of wanted the calf, but the calf wasn't still nursing.
Right.
So I would use the calf as a shield.
She still didn't have that nursing instinct down.
She would grind her teeth, just gnash her teeth, and just open, close, and grind them, and molars.
And she'd do okay with the nipple, with the bottle, but again, she was grinding more than sucking, and I think it was just that nervous system issue from being
frozen,
hypothermic and frozen, that the nerves were starting to come back, and it was slow, really slow.
Yeah, and she would, with the nipple, I like to use, we always used Coke bottles when I was a kid, and you cover it, whether people are doing lambs or calves, whatever, you're using a Coke bottle. Well, a Coke bottle's hard. They didn't have plastic bottles in those days like that. I mean, everything was glass. And the problem with that is they would suck to a vacuum. You'd have to pull it out of their mouth and let that refill, let that equalize, and then they could go again, which they would get some good sucking action doing that, but they sometimes wouldn't get anything. Or, you had to be careful not to get air in their bellies, things like that. With a plastic bottle nowadays, they're stiff enough, certain brands, and we know what to buy.
So we're in the fridge. I'm like, oh, okay, would this one work? No, this is too stiff. Oh, this is too soft. So we found a couple that worked really well.
And so you can fill them, and then you can slowly squeeze, or you can pulse a little bit and drive it into. And some of these nipples I've got for like really bad calves, where I've really opened up the nipple a lot, so it can almost flow in there. They don't have to really have a lot of sucking action. Or then I can push it and really squirt a lot of milk in. And others there's one that's about halfway, and then we got a couple that are normal.
Just regular,
And so you're just filling her mouth. And then she was occasionally swallowing because her mouth was full. She had nowhere else to go with it.
Yeah.
And part of it's going dripping down on the outside. And I'm wondering really how much is she getting, right?
Right.
So
we smelled really good like milk.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't like the smell of high content butterfat.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was milking her into a bottle to kind of, not so much, I mean, it'd be easier into a little bucket or something, but you know what? I want to try to contain that, not contaminate that milk. And you can milk her right into a water bottle. That's what I was doing. Milking her into that, but I was using the calf, or she knew that calf was trying, and I'd have the calf up there, and then I'm milking her, so she's not kicking. She really didn't kick that much when the calf was around, which is pretty typical.
And of course, the milk went everywhere.
Yeah.
Dad's face, the cow's face.
Yeah, I'm trying to squirt the calf, and I miss the calf, and get myself. And anyway, it doesn't matter.
No,
but
it means his aim isn't very good, Calen. That's what it means.
You try that from the back of the cow.
No, I'm not gonna get that close.
Of course not. Well, I'm safely behind the gate.
Yeah.
Pointing my finger, telling him what to do.
Oh, Brandon, a little closer.
So, you get the calf up there, and I just do this. I mean, when they get close, I'll just grab that nipple, and I will squirt milk onto their face. And sometimes, whether it's a smell, a little bit of the taste, I'll squirt it in, or try to open their mouth and squirt it in their mouth. You'd be surprised what that does to induce a natural ability that's like, oh, hey, that's not bad. I want more of that. And they'll start to nurse. And this calf, we tubed her a couple of times with the mother's milk.
Well,
Right.
she got milk replacer like for 2 to 3 days.
3 days.
And then mom's milk
Yeah.
for several days.
But I was going to try to fill that bag. And I
Yeah.
did that. I was milking her enough to fill a bottle or fill in a bottle, and the calf was there. And I just squirted into this calf's mouth, and all of a sudden, man, she glommed on and she started nursing.
She figured it out. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a switch turned
But
on.
So that took how many days?
That
About
was about
5.
day 5 or 6.
About 5 or 6 days.
So
That's a
it's
while.
got to be the neural synapses
Just kinda coming back to
recovering
life.
and
Because you could see in her eyes.
Which again
Her
goes
eyes
back to
were
our
just-
conversation. Well, yeah, I see what you're saying, because her eyes are kind of dull and she just slowly came back. But it goes back to the conversation we had, which was, the experiments with cold weather, how they found people did come back, but it was just so slow. And that's, I think, in a weird way, I think that's part of the reason why people like Walt Disney had their heads
It's frozen,
stored
yeah,
in
brain's
crypto, or
Cryo.
regeneration, I think. Is essentially it's just waiting there because they think that there's a possibility they could resurrect one day, which
Right.
is an
Right.
interesting concept, because I could see it. It's a possibility, I guess, but I don't know.
maybe
It's
not
weird.
after that long.
There may be
Yeah,
enough
not
brain
after that
damage.
long.
I mean, anytime you freeze anything, you cut
Right.
tissue with
Yeah.
whatever water or
Right. I was gonna say the
or-
ice, the formulations of crystals, they do cut and they end up causing damage eventually. But
But
Right.
she definitely had a neural deficit and things weren't working at
Yeah.
regular speed. And
it'll be interesting to see how much that impacts her development later on, maybe.
yeah,
Right. Well, we'll watch. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. You can't
Because-
not watch that.
because
Right.
currently she's looking like a typical
Yep.
calf at her age. I mean, she responded like she was several days younger than what she was when we
Yes.
were trying to get mom
Yeah.
and calf together. And when she first started nursing, it was like she was a day old calf.
Mhm.
But again, it was just that kind of reset and restarting of the nervous system.
Well, and some of the symptoms that you guys talked about that you related to me, you could see that happen in the calf itself. Like you
Right.
had mentioned that, some of the symptoms in humans when they had, Nazis had done that. And so,
Yeah.
it was interesting to see that develop in real time, slow, frustrating.
Mhm.
And I at one time, I literally got frustrated as I'm trying to get this calf to nurse. And I said, you have got to start doing this or I'm going to have to stick a bullet in your head.
Yeah.
You can't do this. You have got to try.
Yeah.
Well, it's frustrating too, because it's almost like they're in a sense retarded almost from a lack of
their
oxygen.
development has been, yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
wonder. Yeah, exactly right. It's like, their body's starting to shut down. How much oxygen are they really getting?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, your brain is alive after you quit breathing. That
Right.
autonomic nervous system stops. Your brain's still alive for a while. Okay, if it
Mhm.
starts again, it kind of comes back. So there is that possibility there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see an animal suffer. And if I have to euthanize it, I'll euthanize it.
Right.
If I think there's no hope, but there was I was right on the edge. I just didn't think it was going to make it. I really did not at one point.
What's crazy
day
is-
number 4.
What's crazy though is of the 3 of them you had, 2 of them were the ones that you said one was the worst you'd ever seen, and then one came up a couple days later and said,
Even
"Hey,
Yeah.
worse.
I'll top that."
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, and
Yeah.
then the other part of her nursing, I thought not only was the palate, but because of the frozen tissue, you know how freezing
Right.
tissue will, as it heals, it expands
Mhm.
and her breathing probably wasn't as good as it should be. And
Oh, good
so
point.
as she's sucking, she's got to try and breathe and suck. That had to have a little bit of impact on her ability, I
And I'm
think,
sure the
too.
pain. There's pain.
Right,
there.
right.
Well, because think
exactly.
about
You
your
know-
fingers, if they get really cold and then they come back, they
Right.
typically, especially the tips, they'll warm up too fast and then they're swollen and you don't have very good feeling. And then they're
Right.
just uncomfortable and there's that pressure there. So I would imagine if the same thing's
Oh,
in your mouth, why would
it
you want to
hurts.
suck and try and drink or anything like
Right.
that?
Right. I've never fully frostbit my hands, but I've got them so cold that it hurts to warm
Yeah.
them up. I mean, they've never turned colors, anything like that. I've never, had
At
that.
least not black.
Right. But yeah, oh, it hurts.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think I did that.
I'm the same way. I've had several instances like that, but I've had it twice for sure where all the tips of your fingers, they swell, like I just said, and you can't feel it, and that pressure, it
Right.
hurts. And you're like,
Oh,
Yeah.
I like stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's warm because
So,
it's on fire,
yeah,
but
Right.
and you learn things. I don't care how old you are, you learn stuff about things that you've known your whole life. One of the things that I took away from this is something that your mom come up with that maybe a damp, warm cloth in their mouth. Maybe
Yeah.
that will help, because the 114's jaw was she was so froze down, you could hardly open her mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I can't get a tube down her anyway.
Right.
right.
And you want to, and I told her, so we need to get some milk down them to help warm that core, but she wasn't going to suck, and I couldn't get her, mouth open enough to even get a tube down her. So that was we were in a spot where it was tough. It was like, well, we'll just have to keep really rubbing her vigorously to get her to kind of come around. And then the other one, before I even thought about tubing her, she, getting something in her, she took a nipple. She was, she was fine.
Pretty willing.
Yeah, but she wasn't near as in a bad a shape as
it's not a trick that I would want to test anytime soon, but the next time
No.
we get the chance, I think it's definitely something to be worth
I think
seeing what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, you keep coming back to some things that older people saying. I remember my grandpa's, they'd seen about everything, and once in a while they'd be surprised by something. Oh, I didn't think that was going to work, or my old history teacher just recently died. Went to his funeral this summer. He's 96, and he got into sheep. Their families were into sheep too, and at his funeral, they're talking about one of his sons said one of the grandkids was sitting around asking him what he learned about sheep, and he said, well, 64 years I've had sheep, I've figured out that there's 64 different ways that they try to die. So I tell you, they never quit learning, things, other situations come up. So, and with moms, I would have never thought about putting a warm cloth in her mouth, and your mom came up with that, and I was like, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Super good idea.
It makes me think of other ideas.
I just wish I'd have thought of it before.
Yeah. But I mean, it makes me think of other ideas too of, like we do for humans in terms of it's normally the other way around, which is when they're too hot, you're trying to cool them down, you strip them down and you put like cold ice packs or sheets over like the inguinal areas and then like around the neck and the head. It's almost like I wonder if you could do something similar with like a warm cloth around the base of the skull and maybe around the midsection. It'd be interesting to see.
Yep. And with people want to know, why didn't you use the hot box? They were so beyond. The hot boxes to get them warmed up, get them dried off when they're in pretty good shape, really pretty decent shape.
They're just chilled.
Yeah.
That's more methodical, kind of nice, easy warm up, nothing super ridiculous. Yeah.
Yep. And I think the one we started to do that, and
I went, Fireside, after we got her dried off, we put her in the hot box because we went out to check somebody else.
That's right.
And we came back and the hot box just wasn't warm enough. And she was
so cold outside that heater was not heating the, that air exchange.
So we brought her back in the house and she sat by the fire for a couple more hours.
So guess what one of my projects is when it's warm weather and all of the calves are calved, I'm going to have to do the Binford 5,000 box. I'm going to do something different with some heat.
He's going to take a tip from the tool man and try and modify something.
But we did
add it to the project video so we can make that a compilation one day as a video.
There you go. Well, and we did take the space heater out and with propane heat and put it in the barn in that area where we've got chips and stuff, just kind of help take the chill off. And went that route with them, and that always works. But you're heating a lot of area.
I think I've been investigating some infrared heaters, and I think we're going to maybe get a couple plug-in infrared heaters. That way, we don't have a flame, and
it's less dangerous.
No carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide,
and it heats up the objects and the animals, not everything. So it's a little more efficient.
Warm air running over the top of a body. That convective heat, though.
For the hot box, that's good. But I'm saying
have both.
Have those available when we've got somebody in the barn.
Right.
Got a cat clawing
you?
The
cat's attacking me. Yes.
I had another question. I don't remember what it was now. Goodness gracious. Well, one of the few times I'm dropping a question here. Oh, that's what it was. So the little one, you said Elsa, she had frozen nose, frozen ears. She froze her tail too, right? I'd guess if the ears
Well,
were
her
frozen.
tail was awfully solid, but I
It's
don't
so
know.
far,
It
but
looks
you won't know for a while.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot more
Well-
mass.
Well, ears, the current ears, kind of came from a similar situation. That's why she's missing half her tail and she doesn't have ears and she's just got little nubs that move around a little bit.
she's Shrek.
Because yeah, Shrek. What I think Dad calls her Pegapotamus sometimes.
Yeah.
The thing is, if she does lose her ears and possibly her tail, she's not. Unfortunately, she's probably going to get docked money at the sale barn. So, are you considering right away potentially just making her a replacement heifer and seeing
No.
what happens? Or
No, because
We'll have to see how things go, because what do you know about
here we go.
her name's Elsa, so maybe she'll be another mascot.
Here's the thing. We got very, very lucky with ears because
Yeah,
she's got good feet. And this
Yeah.
is what happens a lot of times with these frozen calves is
gotta check the feet.
their feet, it will hurt them in long-term later life. And sometimes their digestive system doesn't quite work like it should.
yeah,
So do you want to take a chance on keeping an animal, in a herd that is going to have bad feet? You're better off going ahead and put it in with the group that's going to be a slaughter animal where it can live fine, do well up until the time to slaughter it. If it's a short-term slaughter, than it is to let it develop and then have foot issues, and then it's going to be slaughtered, but it's going to be slaughtered for all hamburger and at a later date for a whole lot less. That's the possibility, and we could do that locally where we just keep it, feed it up, and then
See how she
slaughter it,
does.
but it would all
Yeah.
go for just direct consumption. And I don't necessarily
Right.
want to do that. I want an animal that's not got digestive issues, going to have good fat. Those are the animals you want to have for your customers. So
Mhm.
as a reproductive animal, again, ears, super lucky. We are so lucky that she turned out the way she did, but that doesn't guarantee that everyone she's an anomaly. Let's put it that way. That normally doesn't happen with a really solidly frozen, really bad off animal. And I don't know that ears was this bad off. I wasn't there. Dad was. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
was a
wish
while ago too.
I wish
yeah, it's
he
a long
could
while ago.
he could
10
tell
years,
us comparison wise how the two compare.
Yeah. So
But you didn't see this one.
Well,
So
that's it.
yeah, you just don't know.
we're recording March 26th. It'll come out, I think April something, the 8th, April 8th. Oh, hey, look, that's somebody's
That's your brother's
actually
birthday.
April 1st. It's gonna be April 1st. Sorry.
Okay.
The question is, where are you at? You're about what? About a
We're a little
third of the
over
way.
We're about
Okay.
57%, I think, is where I calculated yesterday.
And we're just less than a
57.
month in,
Yeah.
which is pretty typical. We're going to have a lot of
26
them
days
happen in
in.
the next 2 weeks. So by 45 days in, we're normally 85,
80,
90%.
85, yeah.
Yeah, and then
And of course, all
weather's
these storms we're
slowly.
having.
Well, yeah, I know you're getting storms, but I mean the weather's still slowly improving in terms of temperature, though, is it not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only getting to, wind chill this morning was about 15, 19, something like
Yeah.
that when I went out at 2.
Okay.
So it's better. We just haven't had as much wind, but the ambient's been around the mid to high 20s at overnight, which is
That's
pretty
pretty good.
good. It's I guess that's seasonal.
No, it's a little below.
It's a little below, but
And
we got a lot of snow.
this coming week, we're gonna have a few nights with the low teens. So that's cool
Mhm. So what's
for
your I guess plan going forward? Is there any changes you're going to make to what you've currently been doing? Any reason to change or anything like that?
No,
Yes, everybody's gonna come in the barn. That's my plan.
Are you
She
going to
sees
enforce
a
that one,
cloud.
Mom? Love to see you enforce it. Really would.
Well, I'm talking to some people about expanding the barn and the shop
not that part of
so
it.
that we could bring animals in and we'd have more of a temperate climate where babies can be born. And then And then it'd be more comfortable for the rancher who has to go out in the night. He'll have electricity. He'll have kind of heated-ish area.
And
I think I've got a great plan.
and his sidekick would have what? It's still the same warm bed that she resides in now while said rancher is out checking things.
Okay, the caveat, Calen, is I do tell him, if you need help, I will get up with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I have told him
We
that.
all know
Yeah.
how that little language barrier, what
Mhm.
that really means.
I would get up if he
but
needed
you
help.
will pay for it.
Yeah.
No, I won't.
So here's the question though. Let's go down this possibility. Mom has this thing constructed and it's perfect for dad. It's wonderful. It's just all hunky dory. What about the ones that are still deciding to calve out in the pasture? What are you gonna do with them?
Well, if it's icky out, then we bring them into the barn so they can warm up for maybe a day.
We normally, if there's going to be a really hard storm and it's a calf killing
Right.
storm, we'll bring
We
it to
will.
the corrals.
Right.
do
that
that.
And
makes
then
sense.
the
Yeah.
straw, we've got big
Some bedding.
bales of bedding, and so we've used that a lot this year.
Yep. More
Oh,
than
I was gonna say,
more
where'd you get those? When did you get those? 'Cause
Well,
I
we
did not
pick
see
them
those
up.
when I
We've
was
got
home.
small squares that we've got, and we've got some large rounds. And we got
Okay.
local guys here that they're building straw, and straw is relatively cheap, and especially cheap when you need it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's just a small insulator. It's a relatively cheap insulator, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
And so anyway, he's put this straw out for bedding in the corrals where we've got the girls that are close. And then we've got some small squares for the barn area, right, south of the barn, and chips inside. And we've used more of that this year than we ever have. And a lot of it's because of the way the snow's been hitting us.
Yeah.
And, the corrals get so muddy and icky, at least the straw, even if it gets wet, keeps them up above the water and the ick.
Yeah.
And well, like that calf that was born yesterday.
Mhm.
It was pretty nice yesterday, honestly. And then the snow came in during the night, and that little guy was just, Dad said, burrowed down in that straw, which is awesome. That's what it's for.
We had
Right.
what, one or two yesterday?
We had two yesterday.
Two, yeah. So I mean, it's amazing how tough those little animals are. They really are. If they can get on their feet and they can nurse,
They're in good shape.
they can take a lot of cold, even with no straw.
Mom
but-
prefers they have a night or two in the barn with heat, but
They don't know
They
the
are.
difference.
they don't.
Well, it
Still
just
tough.
makes them soft when you do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
Don't worry, Calen. I got plans. I'll take care of it. And you can help Dad next year when you're home.
yeah, you might be doing a lot of, I might get a sleep next week or next year.
I was gonna say, it's gonna be my first calving season next year.
Yeah,
30
you've been
years
gone
old.
for all of
It'll be
these.
my first calving season. I could because grew up not on the ranch, grew up away from it. So it was always grandpa and grandma taking care of the calves. And we were there to
Well,
help and stuff, but it wasn't
yeah.
like I wasn't doing anything at night or anything like that. And yeah, it'll be my first calving season. At 30 years old, here I am, giving wisdom and knowledge out to the world on YouTube, a video at a time. Yet I've never done calving on my own.
I'm sure your brother would be happy to give you a tip or two.
Yeah, I'm not taking any sort of anything from him because then it's just going to be ground into the salt into a wound. Be like, oh, I'm an expert. Look, you got to follow me around.
Oh, he would.
He would.
Oh, he would play that
Yeah.
card big
I'm not.
time.
I'm not touching that with a
And to
10-foot
be-
pole. Nope.
To be honest with you, for pulling calves,
He's
I know
really
you've
He's
told me. You
very
don't have to say it. The
good.
people don't need to hear that. They don't need to hear that.
well, but you know how gruff he is and how growly he is.
Yeah.
You should watch him. He'll put a hand on a cow's hip and he'll go, "It's all right, honey. It's all right. You'll be all right." And I'm like, "Where's this kid come from?" And then
Wait, he has
He'll get
emotions.
he has emotions. Yeah, exactly. And then he gets this calf and it's time to pull. He's got everything straight. Everything's looking good. She's just having trouble. And he will put pressure and he'll wait. And then when
Yeah.
he watches, she starts to contract and he'll gently pull. I'm like, I have no idea where he came from because that is not him normally, but he does.
No.
He is so intuitive about how he does that is
That's good.
incredible. No, it is very good, but
No,
Um,
it just means he
I mean,
set
I
a
had to-
standard that I have to now go up above.
well, but I mean, I showed him how, but he just
Oh, you don't have to show me. I'm going to learn on my own. I'm going to be a
There you go.
professional from day one. I got to beat him.
We're hoping we find a Stella presentation when you're home so we
Oh,
can
yeah.
take you to her.
I mean, I'll take it. I'm not going to
Yeah,
say
no,
no to
it's
something.
really valuable.
It was
It's
really good.
really good.
Well, especially I feel like going into a calving season where it'd be my first experience ever, the most beneficial one would not necessarily be the first one that you did, which was,
Right.
pulling the calf out the right way. It's what do I do when the calf is breached? That's the important one, because those are the ones
Right.
that can
Well-
get complicated and messy real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know what? It's also important to know how it goes right. Well,
Yeah.
Sure.
so that's your
Yeah.
baseline, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some value there to all of it. And your mom she goes, why didn't you pull a calf on that clinic? And I'm like, well, I've kind of done it, but I saw some people there that had never done it, and mom had
Mhm.
never done it,
Yeah.
I was like, knowing what to do is important. I can imagine what it feels, because I've already been there. And so it's a really good thing. It really is. And that's a really good opportunity. And I would like to see Braden do that, as well.
Have them do some goofy ones. With,
Yeah, do
with
some,
him.
and because they'll do them where they're backwards, or you got a
Yeah.
front and a back leg coming back, and you have to
That'd
push
be
it back.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's
Well, and we got a sink plunger.
yeah,
Specifically because out of that clinic, one of the participants, because the vet's saying, well, what do you guys do? What have you seen? And this one couple said, yeah, we have a sink plunger, and you can put it on the calf's head
or the butt if they're
their
backwards.
butt if they're backwards, and you can push them back in order to get them repositioned. And it's like, oh my gosh, what a great idea. And the vet was like, I love that idea. You can really get a hold on them that way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because go ahead.
The whole point of this clinic was in areas where you have large cattle production, a vet can't get to every emergency. And
or you're remote enough, they may not have time to get there.
Right.
I was gonna say our vet's at least 30 minutes away on good roads and everything.
At least
on a good day.
Minimum on
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, so this is really designed to outreach for those people who you can't get a vet there, and trying to help minimize the number of times that you really need to have a vet. And I mean, it's valuable, and part of their grant that they got it from includes the outreach and the teaching. So I have no doubt they're going to be doing this for quite a while.
Who's it through? Who was the class through?
It's a vet in
Crazy Mountain Vet, and they've purchased several vet clinics around the area.
Several smaller ones.
I think they're actually around Wilsall is maybe their primary one.
Might be.
And then they've purchased some, but the whole part of that grant is to go anywhere in the area. So they even go to Eastern Montana with it.
They were down by Dillon, I think, one time, and they were up like Cut Bank
that
area.
thing was $40,000.
$40,000 for Stella.
For this life-size cow and calf. That's a lot of money.
Just can't believe how valuable it is for teaching people.
Was there a fee for you guys to watch?
No.
Really? Because I would think there would at least be something small to help cover costs, because that would be the point of, pay at least to cover the cost of traveling to and back. But
and maybe later on they will, but right now I think the grant helped to cover some of that. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I think that was just the cost of it. But think of it this way, as a business.
Yeah.
Right.
If you are
your
doing
name out there,
outreach, and
it's advertising.
And here's the thing with the ag school and vet schools, won't purchase these things because it costs too much money. So you have somebody who's already in business, getting the grant to do it, and then they're responsible with doing the outreach teaching, which
and
is
they actually took it to the ag and vet school.
Right.
So, it's perfect.
And they take it there. So, it kind of irks me a little bit that it takes the businesses, when you got an ag school or a vet school that should be using this as a tool for vets to teach vets.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing though with like humans, because we've had some great human mannequins that we've used, but they don't, one might be for obstetrics. There you go, that word, obstetrics, and then then there's other for trauma and stuff like that. But the ones that are really good are trauma, but then they also have things within them that they'll pump blood. So, the reality of it, like, hey, you're not applying
Right. Enough pressure.
Enough pressure.
enough pressure or the proper treatments, and there's still blood coming out. And when you do the proper treatments, it rewards you with stopping the blood. And that's
Or
kind of
you
the
need
thing.
to add an IV with some, get some more blood in there. They're running
Sure,
out.
Yeah. But the more
Lost.
reality you can
Yeah.
put into something like that, the better. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think it takes them some time to teach these courses. I mean, these are,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a day out of their time easily to be able to travel, do it over the course of,
Yeah, because what time was that? Like a 4:30 class?
yeah, we were done
And they
by,
were probably a half an hour away from where we were, but they were set up.
yeah,
So they had to have been there an hour or two before we got there.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
outside of the travel time because we got to move this thing. I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
it's a significant amount of time for them to do this. At the same time, if they can provide this as a service and people can take care of themselves, and then they may call them later. I mean, it's kind of a business thing too. I can see where it would do that, but you know how farmers and ranchers are.
Yeah.
If they can learn something and do it themselves, they're not going to call anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
But when somebody's in trouble, they may call them because you're building a rapport with them, and
Yeah.
and you know, I have only ran into a couple of vets, even the gruff ones, that were not too willing to come and help or too unapproachable to even give a call. There's been a couple, but not very many.
Few.
Almost all of them are like, you give them a call and they're like, okay, they'll try to walk you through it first.
Right.
Yeah.
What's going on? Okay. And they'll give you some advice. And I've told myself, okay, I appreciate this. I say, make sure that you bill me for your time.
Yeah.
And they never do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, but
That's because they
know
care
that
about
you-
animals. They're doing what they wanted to from the start.
True.
So.
It is. Yeah, that's right. So no, it's a very good relationship, I think, that most vets have with the people. And I'm sure they've got people that won't pay or can't pay, and
Yeah.
you know, they're desperate and they help them out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's that whole spectrum, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, more of the story just comes back to I would love to go to that class because then I can do better than my brother. So that's what's important.
It's all about competition, isn't
It's
it?
about competition.
No, it's not about competition. It's just being better than him. That's all.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll have to do another episode sometime on Bailey got to Braden's girlfriend got to tag and band a calf.
Oh
She
boy.
was amazingly good with that banding. That should be disturbing to him.
She should try it on Braden.
Yeah.
I think it was mentioned.
That'd be smart.
So we'll have to get her on there sometime and talk about that maybe a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's all I got for today. So
That's it. That's all we've got. Well, and if that's all everybody else has got, what will we do?
Thank you till we're better paid.
You're better paid because
Yeah.
we're never
Yeah.
better paid.
Oh, that's right.
Well, here's our success stories. That is one of the two that we brought in together on a week ago today when it was so stormy, so bad that this cow had abandoned the calf. She gave up on it. And this cow is that heifer, the very first one that calved, that lost a calf. And she has taken this twin that we found that had just been born and was near death. One of the worst I think I'd ever seen. If we kick her up out of her bed and see what happens now, encourage her to move, you'll see she should go up to this heifer. The light will turn on here in a minute. She goes, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I can go and nurse. So this should be a success. Come on, go over there. There we go. And that heifer has been just letting her nurse. Has time to taken her. She smells her just like a mother does. Make sure it's her calf. And the calf starts nursing. And we're good to go. And then 114, her calf, is right over here. Let's go over to her. See if I can get this cow to come back to her, because she also had given up on her. So this was the other one that was a real struggle to stay alive. She was mostly froze. You can see her ears are curling up. She's gonna lose those ear tips. And look who's right on my tail. Yeah, and her nose is black. Frostbite hasn't started to peel completely yet. She's got a little bit of a snotty nose, but you can see those ears are, she's definitely gonna lose those hips of those ears, if not more. But it wasn't until just a day or so ago, 2 days ago, that she started nursing. We could not get her to accept a nipple from a bottle. I was literally having to tube her to get enough hydration in her, and look what she's doing now. She was almost in just a catatonic state. Really didn't have any idea or will to nurse. And now she's coming over here. Of course, the cow's, I'm moving, so the cow's gonna move. And you might be able to hear her when she latches on. Well, the cow's gonna move, but she's been nursing on her own and knows what to do. It's been a couple of days, and we'll keep her up for maybe another day or two. Her and this one that's now nursing over here, that heifer's taken on that baby, a twin, and so we got success there. Number 86, her and that calf can go out today. We're gonna let them go and be free. So we've got 3 calves, saved all 3 of them. They are nursing, doing what they want to do, need to do, and self-sufficient as you can be with needing a mom. All in all, really good story to this. Like these kind of endings.